Welcome to the show, everyone. How are you today? How's your week coming along? I hope you're having a great, wonderful week. I've had a fantastic week so far. Just living life the best I can. Today I have a guest that I've been following for quite some time. He does a lot of work for PragerU, and I like his takes on a lot of things. And not a couple of you have asked me who he is, and I think more people should know who Will is. And I'm going to bring him on. This is Will Witt. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. It's good to be here. Thanks
Yeah, of course.
for liking my takes. You're the guy who likes my takes.
I am. I am. Are they few and far between?
No, there's a pretty good amount of people, but it gets harder when you see the world that we're in.
True. True. I mean, you must get a lot of hate from the internet.
Yeah, that's
Um,
most definitely true.
So you do a lot of man on the street stuff as well. You walk around and you're asking people, talk simple questions sometimes. It's things that, the what I think the average person would know, and don't. It's quite shocking. And I actually I want to ask you, is that are you showing just the worst questions? Like, do you get, like, when you ask a question like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like where a certain state is, or who your governor is, or something. Do you get the correct answer often, or is most times people are just kind of clueless?
I think you're talking about these are things that average people should know. Well, it turns
Yeah,
out that the average, I guess, knowledge base has really diminished in recent years, is what it seems. And so, what we try to do with
yeah.
my videos is that we try to include everyone at least once who we recorded. So, if we're putting out a
Okay.
video, we try and include everyone once. Sometimes people don't give very intelligent answers in the way that they didn't really say much at all. So, maybe we don't include them. But for
Hmm.
the most part, we are trying to include every single person that we filmed in one of those videos to give a fair assessment. And so when you're seeing a video and 75% of the people can't tell you who the vice president was, this is what we're seeing. I don't know if you would do a national poll and ask people these types of questions and the results might
Yeah.
be different. Maybe it's different because we're in California and we have some of the worst education in the country. But
Yeah.
at least with the videos that we're making, the results kind of speak for themselves.
So before we really delve into the work that you do, and you're working for PragerU, and the work that they're doing, I want to just ask you, when you were younger, did you think that this is something that you'd be doing? Kind of trying to bring awareness to the woke, what the woke is doing, and kind of basically just try to instill logic on the internet to people. Was that something you had planned?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, this was not something that I ever would have considered for myself. I never would have considered politics. I never would have considered going and actually being extroverted and talking to people. I was a very shy kid actually growing up, and I wanted to be a veterinarian my entire life for large
Oh,
animals like lions and big cats and things like that. That's what I
cool.
wanted to do my entire life. Going to college, that's what I was planning on doing, and everything changed when I went to college and saw the political landscape that we were in. For some reason, I felt called to get into this world. So yeah, growing up, I had no idea that I would ever do this. And everyone who I grew up with, when I said I'm going to drop out of college and go move to Los Angeles to work for PragerU and get into conservative politics and culture, they said, "Will, what the hell are you talking about? Like
Yeah.
this is what you're going to do with your life?" I was like, "Yeah," and somehow it worked out.
Yeah. Well, what did you do first? You said you dropped out and went to work for PragerU right away?
Yeah, so I dropped out of college because PragerU actually offered me a job. When I was still
Oh,
in college, I made a video on my campus where I asked women what they thought about the wage gap. And I taught
yeah.
myself how to shoot the video, edit the video, borrowed my buddy's GoPro to do it. And then I sent the video to PragerU because I love their content. I love their videos. And they loved the video too. And they ended up posting it. And then they offered me a job. They offered me an internship first. I worked in an internship with PragerU for a summer. Then I actually went and worked for Turning Point USA for about 5 months. I was a field director for them, so I ran the states of Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming for all their
Okay.
chapters of the different universities and high schools. And then I went and worked for PragerU. Moved out to Los Angeles to go and work for PragerU. That was I was at the end of 2017, I believe. So I've been there for about 5 years almost.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
I do want to ask, is Dennis Prager seems like a cool guy. Is he just the same off camera as he is on camera? I have a feeling he is.
Yeah, he's a very genuine guy. Anytime you talk to Dennis Prager
Hmm.
outside of the camera, you're like he because he does a radio show, and so people call into the radio show and they ask him questions, and he'll ask them questions, diving into their lives. He has his happiness hour and his man and woman hour where he's talking about marriage and dating and all these kind of stuff. And when you go and talk to him, especially if you're someone he's never met, he
Hmm.
basically asks you and says, "You have a girlfriend? You have a boyfriend?" Like that's like the first thing he does. He's very much just exactly like he is on the radio show,
Yeah,
and will just talk to you so colloquially and
that's
nicely
cool.
every single time. He's a great guy. He's my mentor in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I really like a lot of his takes. I've seen, I've been exploring a lot of the, I don't know, intellectuals online, and I, I want to specify though, like the logical intellectuals, Jordan Peterson, Dennis Prager, those two come to mind. Thomas Sowell, like these kind of guys, I'm learning a lot from them, and I want to soak up this knowledge because part of what I do on this show is I most of the time I'm not doing interviews. Granted, I'm steering my show to do more interviews, but I do a lot of segment stuff where I'm talking about what's going on in the world. And so I see you and what you're doing, and I use some of that stuff that you're talking about because I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and especially Dennis Prager. He has, and he's got such a good way of articulating what is going on, right? And yeah, I'm constantly wondering, how do we get out of this mess? How are we, moving from where we are to a more stable place? Because it feels like everything's unstable at the moment. So, uh, I I guess what I want to ask is, what is your idea of how to steer out of what we're doing, of or where we're going, rather?
And that is a huge question jumping into this right now. But I will say, when you're talking about Dennis Prager and talking about,
Yeah.
he can break things down, that is what PragerU was born from, because of Dennis Prager and his ideas. And everyone would
Yeah.
say, you take these big topics and you turn them into these small sound bites. And it's like, well, PragerU was born then. PragerU put
True.
these things in 5-minute videos to get out great information, distilling it to all sorts of people. So, I mean, that was kind of the
Mhm.
point. In terms of your question about getting out of the place that we're in, uh, I think there's a few things. I think the number one thing for me is making God a priority in our country again.
Okay.
Church attendance has gone down incredibly in the last even just 10 years. It's gone down incredibly. People are finding new religions all over the place, whether it's overpopulation, this climate change narrative. COVID has become a religion to people. There are all sorts of religions that people latch onto because people are naturally religious. And so I
Yeah.
think that people need to return to actual good values within scripture of the Bible. I think that if we return to that as a country, I think we can do a lot of good. I think that's number one. Number two is fixing the education system. The education system is completely bogged down by bureaucracy and administrative state that makes teaching children actually the lowest priority and getting
Yep.
unions paid actually the highest priority. And
It's true.
so you're having kids with some of the lowest reading scores we've ever seen, especially again, like here in California, you're having kids graduate at levels that are they shouldn't be even allowed to graduate is what really is going on. And it's not even just that there is leftist political bias in the education system. It's that the education system in America doesn't actually teach students how to be creative and articulate and brave and passionate and new thinkers. It teaches them how to be obedient to authority. Education in America came from the Prussian model in the late 1870s. And then eventually by early 1900s, you had this type of standard of education system in every state across the country. And this education system teaches people how to be obedient to authority and stifles creativity and people actually thinking of new ideas. Like I'm going out on the street now and talking to young people in college or sometimes high school, whatever it might be. And these students, when I'm asking them questions, they don't look at you. They don't look at you in the eye. Every other word is like or they can't hold a conversation with you. And this is even aside from all the political stuff, from the political nonsense that's coming out of their mouth after that. They can't even have conversations with you because they haven't even learned how to do proper grammar and communicate with people. So fixing the education system to make sure that the next generations are equipped and intelligent enough to take on the challenges of the day is incredibly important, because this is why they target kids. This is why the left kids with so much of what they do, because they know that they're impressionable. And if you teach them this as a young kid, then when they grow up, they still believe it. A lot of the time, this leftist stuff, adults, it's harder for them to believe it. But if they were taught to them as kids, then they will be that type of leftist when they grow up, because it was so pounded into them when they were children. So those are the two main things. There's a lot more, but those are the two ones that come to mind.
I think that's really important. I mean, we're seeing these people trying to create a new generation of their SJW army, and uh, like you said, people, if they're adults, they're not going to be easily swayed, but children, are very easily manipulated into thinking whatever they're told, because human beings learn from other human beings. That's how human beings uh, learn how to do things in life. You can't plop a baby in a room and have them grow up and know how to communicate. They wouldn't be able to communicate, because you got to learn how to speak and all that. That's an underlying answer that I get a lot, actually. The younger generation, civil discourse, even like you said, people can't look you in the eye. I'm actually looking at you, by the way. My camera's over here, but my screen is over here. So
I trust
I,
you. I
I
trust
am
you.
in
You
fact
seem very
looking at you.
confident.
Yeah, I think that is such an important thing. Education. This shift. Do you think that there's a shift going on in as far as people waking up to the woke?
Yeah, I definitely think there is. We were talking before, when we're talking about education, we're talking about unbiased education, and I hear a lot of people talk about, well, we need unbiased education for science and history and all these kind of things, but you can't really have an unbiased education. I think this is
Okay.
what it comes down to. I think that if you're going to be like politics and history, those are always going to be biased. And as of now, in the education system in this country, it has always been biased towards the left. And so what I say is that if we want to have this woke revival, disband the woke and say, okay,
Mhm.
where do we move forward as a country? Then we need to put our values into the education. I think that is paramount, because conservatism is kind of, a lot of people talk about libertarianism and say, okay, we just need people to stay out of our lives. That's what we want to be like. But as soon as you do that, you are going head to head with the left. And the left is an ideology built off revolution. That's why they get all these people to join their cause and say, you're oppressed, you're this, you're that, working class, rising up, proletariat. So if you have this revolutionary ideology versus an ideology that says, leave me alone, you are every single time going to get steamrolled. And so you
Yep.
can't fix the education system. You can't fix the churches. You can't fix the corporate lobbying or any of these things. You can't battle the woke if you are not ready to actually battle. You can't just be this mindset of live and let live, because as soon as you do that, this revolutionary ideology will roll you over. So I think there is a revolution in this country of people understanding that the wokeness is not for them. That wokeness, by survey, is actually only a small percentage of the population, but they're very loud. And that's the problem. And that people, especially a lot of Republicans in leadership, are more worried about what the New York Times says about them than actually battling against the woke,
Yeah.
battling against these types of things. So I think there's a revolution of normal people going on, but I don't necessarily know if the leadership is fully on board yet.
Yeah, we definitely need the leadership to get on board with that. It's almost like we need a whole new. You mentioned science, math. The regular courses that one would take in school. It feels like we need something new as well, like emotional intelligence, logic, civil discourse, certain things that teaching people how to communicate, teaching people how to understand themselves on emotional level. Like, all human beings are emotional. We all, some handle their emotions better than others. I mean, there's things that aren't being taught. I mean, even just taxes, to learning how to be an adult. You don't learn that in school. Of course, I think that they purposely don't want us to understand taxes, because
Yep.
it might
Yep.
get people a little upset about knowing where their money's going, or why it's not coming back to them, or being spent on things they don't want, like sending it overseas. How do you feel about having our tax dollars sent to Ukraine?
Yeah, well, first, Governor DeSantis actually did sign into law a bill that was education for financial literacy for high school students. If you want to graduate from high school in the state of Florida, you got to go through financial literacy courses, which is
I
just
love that.
fantastic. DeSantis just doesn't stop losing. I mean,
No, he doesn't.
he's doing, or doesn't stop winning, is what I mean.
Right.
He's done better than Trump could have ever dreamed of, in my opinion. I think.
Well, he's a
In terms of this,
politician, who
right,
knows how to use politics to get basically what the citizens need. I think that's really what it
right.
feels like what he's doing. Trump kind of was like, you know what, I should join politics because I want to make America great again. I mean, he wasn't a politician, he was a businessman, so it's
Right.
definitely different. Please
Right.
continue though.
Yeah. I love DeSantis. I mean, I just think he's the
Me
man.
too.
Uh, anyway, when it comes to the 40 billion to aid in Ukraine, I mean, this is basically just funding a money laundering organization. At
Yep.
this point, you're sending $40 billion overseas with everything that is happening here in this country, with the border wide open. I mean, when Nancy Pelosi was asked about a border for America, she said, no, 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 you can't do that. It's racist, asking all these billions of dollars. And now we're sending $40 billion over to Ukraine, arms. As well, at the same time, Fox News is even reporting that Russia is having major losses and pulling out of some areas. And it's like, well, then where is the money going? Is that going to more military supplies? If they're already pulling out, what are we sending the 40 billion for?
Right.
None of it makes any sense. None of it adds up. Is essentially paying off defense contractors in the military industrial complex to give them paychecks and to give campaign finances to the people who are voting yes on these things. Republicans for too long have been this, and I was in the same boat. I will admit, I was in the same boat when I was first starting out in my political career, in this boat of pro-war, pro-world policeman type of mentality of America needs to be involved in everything across the world, because if we don't, then there's no freedom across the world. And I think that mentality is wrong. When you actually get into the nitty gritty of why these things are happening and the propaganda around it, you'll find that most of the money that America sends around the world is to make defense contractors rich.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. And this 40 billion is more of the same.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think Raytheon made like $10 billion so far
It's
in the
insane.
Ukrainian war. It's like that's who's making the money. They're like, we're sending it to Ukraine. It's like, no, you're not. You're sending it to these weapon manufacturers who then send. You're buying weapons and then they're giving it to Ukraine. So they're just making money. They're like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
this is great for our bottom dollar. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you, thanks Ukraine, thanks Russia. I mean, they're probably privately praising that Russia finally, um, gave in to attacking Ukraine. Which I had Robert Barnes on the show on Tuesday, and he was explaining how uh, politically they've been poking at Russia for a long time to try to get this to go down so that they can make all this money with defense contracts. It's
Right.
not really surprised.
Oh, I mean, it's quite obvious when you look back at the history of what has been going on in that country. I mean, for them to call it a democracy after, I mean, just going a year, looking at what the mainstream media said about Ukraine, all the
Hmm.
horrible things that they said about Zelensky. I mean, the poorest country in Europe, the most corrupt country in Europe. How could anyone be supporting what is going on here? And now Zelensky is the biggest hero of our generation. And if you don't support Ukraine, you're Putin shill, and you're a
Yep.
terrible person, and you should be censored off of social media, and you're basically working for Russia today. And you have Republicans in Congress who are saying the same thing. And the worst part about this is that I'm worried that Republicans in Congress who are voting for this $40 billion package aren't scared enough of losing their seat because of doing this. And that's what's frightening to me, is that there isn't enough information being blasted out there for, I guess, generations of Republicans to know what they're actually doing and what this actually means. There
Yeah.
needs to be more information getting out there. People like Tucker Carlson who go out on his show and being the only one on Fox News to say anything about this, the only one. And there are other podcasters and things and Substacks that are doing it, but until this stuff goes mainstream to really get out to a wider audience, I fear we're just going to get more of the same.
Well, they're not going to accept that. They need the narrative to continue that Zelensky's some sort of hero. Ukraine is in desperate need for us. McConnell said the biggest issue on the planet is Ukraine, and it's like, dude, no, are you kidding me? We've got homeless people. The baby food shortage, fentanyl is coming across the border in record droves, enough to nearly kill all of Americans. Like, this is a bad problem that we need to fix. Our infrastructure is totally ruined. Thousands of our um, hydroelectric dams are past their due, or not due date, but
Maintenance.
like they're well overdue. They're
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
last 50 years. They're most of them are like 54 years old now. Who knows when they're going to crumble? Green energy is a lie. I mean, it's not a viable option, but they're using everything to just push the narrative. I just read before we went live. I haven't confirmed this yet, but it's from a pretty solid source of mine that Russia just released some information about Ukraine and the connections with the Democrats. And I have to be really careful because I'm not allowed to talk about this on my show. Every single time I mention it, I get a strike. I've gotten many strikes, but it has something
Right.
to do with the release of something that happened that changed the trajectory of the planet in 2020, and it's shocking to say the least. If it's true, I mean, there's no doubt that they're going to try to suppress it as much as possible. And as soon as it gets out, well, just like you said, as soon as the truth becomes mainstream, then maybe people will actually start doing something about it. But that's the problem right now. That's why they're going after Elon Musk so hard, because they need Twitter to remain under their control. And if it's not, then they're screwed, because taking information and freely letting it spread, it's up to you. It's up to me to decide what misinformation is, not the government, right? What
Right.
is misinformation? I mean, it's either incorrect or just stuff that you don't like. And that's really what and their base believes that it's all misinformation. So even if this truth came out, they're going after Tucker Carlson. They want him to be some sort of demonic Fox News MAGA guy, and no one should listen to him. That's why it's an insult. Oh, you're probably a Tucker listener. I mean, I've seen worse than that on Twitter, but these leftist SJW screechers, that's what they focus on. Oh, you probably get your news from Tucker Carlson. It's like, well, he's right a lot.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, or basically every day. I mean, what's funny is that they label us all conspiracy theorists and all that, but this conspiracy theory was developed by the CIA in the 1960s as a means to control people. They developed the term to branch it and call people conspiracy theorists to make it seem like they're crazy. The CIA did that. I mean, it's insane. But we have to remember that the truth will never be the mainstream. As much as I was talking before about, until we get the truth there in the mainstream. Yeah. There will be elements of truth in the mainstream. There usually always is. The people will give you little sound bites or little snippets of truth, but the real truth is not going to be in the mainstream, because that's kind of the point, especially when lies are so much easier to believe, and you have this mob mentality, people on the left and people on the right as well. This herd mentality of people that makes it so much easier to just believe what you're told and not have to actually go for the truth. And what's important as well to remember about these people like McConnell and Lindsey Graham and these other people who voted yes on these $40 billion packages, they are our employees. I don't think they understand that. We pay their salaries with our tax dollars. You are my employee. And so if I say, I mean, we're not voting on this Ukraine thing. Did you ever get something in the mail to say we're voting for this? Or voting for free healthcare for illegal immigrants here in the state of California, which it costs Californians $2,500 per year on average, the average household in California. We didn't vote on any of this stuff. This is just what they do. And so they have to remember that they're employees. And I think that, again, people need to get more informed on the issues. People need to wake up and understand and do more, because if you do, then you can understand that your candidates are selling you out to big corporations and China and wokeness. Until you realize that, and other people realize that, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse.
Do you think the average person even knows that their tax money is going to giving health insurance to illegal immigrants? Probably not.
I think it's pretty split. I did a video actually in Santa Monica, Manhattan Beach, where I went and asked people if we should give free healthcare to illegal immigrants. Many of them said yes, and said that that's a good idea. So it's hard to know how many of them actually know we're doing that. I think.
Did you follow up though and say, well, good, because you are actually paying for it, right?
Yeah. I heard everyone go to Prager.com. You can watch that video that I did about that. And we had a guy, I forget what his shirt said. Man, it was like a shirt that said like I earned this, like I didn't, nothing's been given to me, I earned this. And then he's like, yeah, we should give illegal immigrants free healthcare. It's like, what the hell? The level of disconnect between your brain and your shirt and the things that you're saying is, it's mind boggling sometimes to talk to people.
Yeah.
But sometimes I go between two camps. Sometimes I'm in the camp where I say, man, I can't blame them. I can't blame these people. They've never heard these ideas before. Obviously, the mainstream media is corrupt. Obviously, social media giants are corrupt, and the world is corrupt. I can't blame them. And then other times I'm like, man, just like look up a different idea for once in your life, you know?
Please.
Like, please, like they're out there, they're out there, just do a little research. So I go back and
Mm.
forth between those, and it's hard to know what people really think.
It's interesting too. The American dream is based on risk. That guy's shirt, I earned this. There's something about that, I love that. I love the idea of risking and failing, but if you succeed, it feels so good. That's like the American dream. If you succeed and you become profitable and your life becomes successful because you earned it, man, that's a story right there. But the government has basically instilled that we as Americans need the government. Without the government, you can't do anything. You won't be able to survive without the government. Like, yeah, we will. We don't need the government, but they need to. The more they supply everything, the the less people rely on each other, community. You mentioned the first answer that you gave me when I asked you like, how do we get out of this? You said religion. And I've actually talked to multiple people about this over the past couple of weeks. What does religion really give people? You know, one of the top things, community and morality, right? Those two things are so important for the general society. Without community, everything falls apart because it's all me, 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 and that's kind of what society is. It teaches us to like care about yourself, don't care about anyone else, care about your life, don't care about the future generations. And then morality, it makes it even worse. Then they don't even care. I mean, this whole gosh, the freaking things I've seen of people talking about abortion over the past week is just insane. I thought
Yeah.
I'm like losing my faith in humanity a little bit, but I'm trying to hold strong because I know there's really good people out there. I refuse to think otherwise. I didn't expect to hear some of the depravity that I've heard from these people. It's just insane. Some of the videos that Savannah Hernandez has put out interviewing people about what they think women should be able to do to their babies. I don't know. What do you think about this whole leak thing going on with the Supreme Court?
I'm not so surprised as you maybe by the responses that I get from people, because
Yeah,
again, as you said, religion is very important, and this leftist religion is the most important thing to these people. If killing a
true.
child in the womb is part of your religion and it's one of your 10 commandments, it's one of your tenets of your religion, then you are going to defend it vehemently, especially if Christianity, in the way that it's set up, you believe that you live in this life and then you go to heaven or you go to hell, right?
Yeah,
Leftists don't have that, or these atheists who don't believe that. And so they think, okay, because I don't have that afterlife, I have to develop utopia on earth. And so because they feel like they have to now develop this utopia on earth, then they feel like they're validated in destroying, hurting, killing, disrupting, rioting any sort of person or ideology that could potentially get in their way of this utopia.
well said.
Democracy to the left is when all of the people who are evil, like you and me, have our voices shut down, so only the good people can actually vote on things. That is democracy to the left. Whereas we
Yep.
say, listen, everyone can have a voice. That's what it's all about. That's what a constitutional republic was set up for. They think the complete opposite. Get rid of the evil people, and then we can have democracy. Who decides what the evil people are? That's the elites in this country today. Anyway, going back to the abortion thing, I mean, when it comes to what has happened, I would love to see Roe v. Wade get overturned. I think that would
Mhm.
be a great first step. I was reading today that there are already states that are preparing legislation, conservative red states preparing legislation that if it does get overturned, that they can actually go through and ban abortion or at least make it harder to do within their state. fantastic news. But I wish that we could just get it federally banned. I wish we could just go farther. And again, this goes back to the weakness of our politicians. In 2016, we had the House, the Senate, and Congress.
Yeah.
The House, the Senate, and the president. And think about getting abortion outlawed. You couldn't even get Planned Parenthood defunded. So what are these people even good for? What are they actually doing? I know I keep coming back to this, but we need strong leaders. We need these leaders who are actually going to have a backbone and stand up for these things. Strong conservative leaders who are not going to be dismayed by what the left is going to say about them. So I think there's a step in the right direction. Don't get me wrong, but I want more. I want to see more. I want to revitalization in America.
You are absolutely right. Having strong leaders, people that are not going to back down in the face of corporations. That's why DeSantis is so great, because he does exactly that. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't even do interviews. He's not on Twitter. He's doing the job to make Floridians as free as possible and make their own decisions. He says it multiple times. I love hearing that from a person in charge. Currently, he's my favorite governor. He's my favorite politician, hands down. There's there's something so admirable about seeing someone not care what people are saying about him. He's like, I hear what they're saying. It's not true. This is the facts. Boom. All right, moving on. It's like, damn, he doesn't even dwell on it. He just locks it down. Get it out of my way. That's a waste of my time. Boom. Moving on. I want to make Florida the best place for the people that I'm working for. And it's like, damn, like that's what I'm talking about. People need to look at that and be like, we need more of that. No more of this BS. Well, you vote left or right, they're all the same people. For the first time, since Trump, like, look, I voted for Trump. I talked about a lot of his policies that I actually did like, but I don't think that he knew how to be a politician in America today. He thought he knew and then realized, I feel like by the end of his presidency, he was starting to maybe realize that he trusted the wrong people, could have done things a little differently. But DeSantis, as I said earlier, he's a politician. He knows how to play the game, and he knows the BS when it's coming his way from other politicians. And we need that. Like you said, we need strong leaders. That is absolutely a must. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't see why DeSantis would actually ever run for president. Hot take, I guess, or uncommon take. Ron DeSantis has a Republican supermajority in Florida. They've had a supermajority for years now, and he can get all of these amazing things done so quickly. No one's vetoing the things that he's doing or upset with him for when it comes to the legislature, and he's just getting things done. And he wants to go to work in the White House and have all these horrible lobbying and the back and forth, the butting heads between right and left, which is basically the same thing, but they agree or disagree to get points on whatever network they're going on that night. I mean, that's really what it's about. I don't know why he'd ever leave.
Good point.
I guess
you're right.
He has ambitions for sure, but it's like he's doing so much good. I don't know if he should even get out of that wheelhouse, because who knows? He does know how to play the game for sure. I just don't want him to get stopped in his tracks and have Florida go backwards because of some other weak leadership or something else. I would love to have him as president, but I'm just always worried about how much people can actually get done in Washington.
That's interesting too, because there's a huge wave of people that are like, DeSantis 2024. And what they really are saying is, oh, finally, someone I can actually root for that I know is a real leader that will actually try to implement things that is good for me, the American. That's what they really want. And there isn't enough of that, because all politics is, all DC politics, the Senate and the presidency, like all of that is just a show. It's all, I'm going to do all this for you. And then I'm going to raise, they raise all this money, and then they never end up actually making any changes. All it is like a bickering, and then campaign. I just start campaigning and telling you how we're going to fix things again. It's like, you're not fixing anything. The only person that I actually see fixing stuff is DeSantis.
Right. I do too. And there's some Republican members of Congress right now who I have some respect for, that I think are definitely better than some of the others. I was very happy with Marjorie Taylor Greene going up, what was it, yesterday, and calling out the the people for the spending bill in Ukraine. I thought that was
Hmm.
fantastic. I'm not always with her 100%, but she was also one of the only people who was there trying to going into the jails to see the January 6 people who had been locked up. She was one of the
Yep.
only people doing that. So I definitely have some respect for her and some of the others in that, I guess you could say, kind of America First camp of those types of congressmen. But
Yeah.
again, still need more, just more. You know, it's like people thinking that, oh, and Rand Paul as well is someone I also respect.
Rand
And it's
Paul. Yeah, I
like,
like him.
people just can't think that just getting Republicans in office is going to change the country anymore. It just
Correct.
doesn't work like that. People need to wake up to that fact. And I think there is a revolution of that, at least in the kind of young new right in this country. Because I haven't always been this way. I've always kind of been before, like, oh, I worked for the GOP in Colorado and I was trying to just get candidates, get people to knock on doors. Like, that's what's most important. And now I'm like, let's vet these candidates, find out if they're God fearing, and see what they can actually do for us, and if they're going to take money from corporate special interests. That's
Yep.
what seems to be most important now. And I think there is a revolution of a lot of people who are waking up to that fact.
Me too. I love it. I want you to talk about your book for a little bit. You wrote a book. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence Enemies. I haven't read it yet. Full disclosure. But
That's okay.
because I
We'll send you a
didn't know
copy.
about it. Yeah, please do. I would love to read it. It
Yeah,
sounds
shoot me
great.
your address after. I'll send
How
the
to
PO box.
win friends and influence enemies. Already, I like it. I just want to show everybody the website. Here it is. This is from centerstreet.com, and then Will Witt wrote a book. When did you write this book?
I did write a book. To everyone's shock. Somehow I made it happen.
No,
I,
I'm
re-
not.
I
I'm not. I hope I didn't come across as shocked.
no, I'm
I'm
joking.
just.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm probably the most shocked person, so
Yeah. Okay.
don't worry. I wrote the book. I finished writing the book about a year ago, and then it came out last September. September
Okay.
21st of last year is when it came
So
out.
new.
Yeah, new. So we're a national best-selling author, which is great. We got the number 6 best-selling book in the world for the first week
Nice.
sales, and the New York Times still didn't put us on their bestseller list. So
Yeah. Wrong
what are you going to
narrative.
do there? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but essentially the book is a, if anyone knows where I got the title, obviously, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the old Dale
Right.
Carnegie novel about influence and talking to people, having conversations, that kind of stuff. And so that's what I wanted to do with my book, but in a conservative way. And so you guys have seen my videos, anyone going out on the street and talking to people, whatever it might be. I've talked to thousands of people, changed thousands of minds, whether that's the people I'm talking to or the people who are watching the videos afterwards. And because of that, I wanted to put that in a book form so that other people could be able to do that too. It's a no BS type of book. I give you the questions that you can actually go and ask people, the tools and strategies, because there's just so many books out there that just say, hey, here's how the left sucks, and doesn't really give too much of a solution. And my book definitely says the left sucks in many ways. But there's also how you can actually talk to those people in your life that you meet about these types of issues. And I've had, I get people come and messaging me and like, actually use stuff in your book. It was great. It actually worked. I was able to have good conversations. That's what it was really all about. That was the point of
That's
the book.
that's really important. I think everyone knows someone in their life that has succumbed to the narrative, just to
Yeah.
put it simply.
Yeah.
And some of them are more zealot than others. And I've actually been, I don't remember who, I've had many guests on my show, and some kind of do that. And people have asked, how do you talk to someone who has succumbed to that side? Carrie Smith was on my show, actually. She's the first person who comes to mind. And she had some interesting input. It's just kind of like, don't try to explain it to them. They have to kind of reach it on their own. Be nice and just don't get heated, don't get upset. um can you let me give you a hypothetical and see what you would say to them. Okay, you
Yeah.
got one of your best friends you've known for a long time. Suddenly they find out that you're conservative. It never came up, right? It was always just sports or football on Sundays. Everything was cool until they found out that you're Republican, and now suddenly they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're a Nazi. I I gotta scream at the world, and we can't ever be friends again." What do?
There's a couple different things you can do there. First, you have to assess the situation. This sounds like a CPR training now, clear the area, assess the situation. But really come to terms on whether or not this person is a friend that is a real friend. Because seriously, if someone's going to not be friends with you because of that degree of political affiliation, then that's probably someone who you don't want to be around anyway. I can't
I agree.
imagine being around someone who's so terrible that they are subscribed to this religion of leftism and won't have a conversation with you because you have a different political ideology than them. If you guys get into some fight and it blows up into something and then you guys don't want to talk, I understand that. But to just off the bat be like, no, I'm not talking to this person anymore, that's probably, you might be doing yourself a favor, to be honest.
Agreed. True.
Yeah. So if it comes to actually talking to someone, number one thing, again, that was in my book, is that I think Carrie was right in the fact that you are not necessarily explaining it to them. They are getting it on their own, but you're doing this through asking questions. You're not going and saying, like, let's say this person who is your best friend is coming and talking about climate change. You're not going up to them and saying, the world isn't going to end in 12 years like AOC said. You go up to them and say, well, why do you think climate change is the biggest issue that we're facing? Right? And you can ask questions in ways that are compassionate and nice, that actually infuse your facts into them. Like we were just talking about the border and we were talking about illegal immigration. And let's say you're talking to your friend about illegal immigration and you say, how much money do you think it costs America to have illegal immigrants in this country every year? I say, I don't know. Say if I told you it was 135 billion, would that work for you? And they say, well, they pay taxes. Well, what if I told you that they only paid about $19 billion worth of taxes every year? That's a $116 deficit. Do you think that outweighs the cost of having them here? You can do all these things and ask some questions with the facts in them in non-condescending ways. That's also important, not condescending ways, to change people's minds. Again, this is on an individual basis. Okay, this isn't like you're talking about the ideas to a large audience or just thinking about in your head. You are talking to individual people who you want to change their mind on. That should be your pinnacle thing. Your pinnacle thing shouldn't be having this person believe that you're 100% right. It should be opening up their mind to change it so that they can actually go and look it up for themselves as well.
I could see you do that. Now I'm just, as you're explaining this, I've seen a lot of your videos and I'm like, you do that so well. And I think the number one thing that you got to have your knowledge down, or your facts about the situation, right? You have to be able to question and insert that fact into it. So you got to know the facts, because if you don't know the facts, then suddenly they'll just use that and be like, well, see, I win. Doesn't matter. If you don't have facts. Yeah, that's great. I like that.
Thank you.
All right. So I want to get your take on something that I saw today that made me chuckle. It's actually quite sad as well. I'm going to let this picture speak for itself. This is something that I stumbled on today. I called it the Man-Maid's Tale. It's two guys in the handmaid's dresses. I guess it's a dress, a smock. What? I don't know. A cloak? I don't know what those are called.
It looks like they're fresh out of the crucible.
When injustice becomes a law, resistance becomes a duty. I've read the books. I don't want to live them. I don't know if you noticed. There's 1984s in here. Do you think he actually read this book? Just curious.
No, I don't think so. And it's very telling as well that they don't have Brave New World in there. That's incredibly important.
Yeah, interesting.
But, I mean, you just look at these guys, and it's like that Wojak meme of those guys who are like, oh, yeah. that type of thing. Have we ever lived in a time period throughout the entire history of the world where men have been more feminine than ever before? I don't think we've ever had a more feminine man time in history. I mean, this picture just screams weakness. That's all it's like you're putting that on, and women don't want to have sex with you when you wear that. I'm sorry. If that's like what you're trying to come across to get, that's not how it works. It's not how it works.
I don't know. I don't know if that's what they're going after anyway. I feel like, all right. So I've got another something I came across today, which I think might explain why I don't think that that's something they have to worry about. This is from Nina Infinity. Again, I'm going to let this speak for itself here. Indian surgeon plans to transplant womb into trans woman in world first op that could pave way for biological men to get pregnant.
I
I
saw this. My fiance sent this to me earlier.
uh
It's hard. It's confusing to read. An Indian
I know.
surgeon plans to transplant woman to a trans woman. Okay, so you're taking a woman's womb and you're putting it into a man,
A man. Yes.
and then how does the man get pregnant?
Right. I, I, it's
I still don't understand.
well, I'll break it down.
Okay,
They're gonna try to be an incubator. Essentially, that's it. It's not like they
right.
can
So they have to get
birth
pregnant
it
before
birth it out of their
their butt.
well, I
Right.
hope that's not where they're incubating it, but well,
Listen, I wouldn't want to be born like that. That's
I mean,
not the way I want to go.
imagine being that's what you're famous for. Oh, you were the first butt baby.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I remember you.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah, you were all over the news. Yeah, I
Oh
remember
my
that.
goodness.
Yeah, no, to
That's
be the first
horrifying.
butt baby would be, yeah, yeah.
I I
I'd
so I
rather be
retweeted
Eric
this.
Swalwell and fart on TV
I
than be the
retweeted
first.
this, and I actually thought about this earlier when you were talking about religion and how the left as it is their religion. And we really need to look at it as if that is their religion because it's so true. And in their religion, they are God. They treat human beings as God. I've come to see this, and that's what this is. They're playing God that human beings, we're the supreme. There's nothing before, nothing after. So we get to make all the decisions that are best for us because we are all our own gods. And when I think about Bryson Gray, who's very religious. Do you know
Mhm.
Bryson?
Yeah, yeah, of
He
course, yeah.
he very much is unapologetically himself and very unapologetically religious, and I respect that out of him a lot because he doesn't back down to anyone more than anyone else on the internet, I think. And he talks about how being like God fearing is so important. I don't want to misquote him or anything, but I'm kind of I from because this was a while back when this conversation was being had with some lefties on Twitter because he doesn't back down, and it was a long thread of back and forths for a while. But in essence, they were trying to say, you know, that's not what the Bible meant, and he's like, no, that's exactly what the Bible meant, God fearing, because when you have fear of being judged after you die, it gives more weight to what you do in life. And they don't want that weight. They don't want accountability. They want to be free to do whatever decisions they want. And it makes me think of Jordan Peterson in Maps of Meaning. He talks about Pinocchio and Pleasure
Mhm,
Island, where they bring the kids and Pinocchio gets stolen away to Pleasure Island, where they give adult things to children and they're playing, but they're muddling their brains because there's no guidance, there's no path, and ancient Egyptians actually, the weight of the heart. When the priesthood took over the religion and started selling trinkets, like, oh, you could just buy these trinkets from us and you could just buy your weight of the heart. Suddenly the whole society fell apart. And
mhm,
that's one of the greatest civilizations that as far as we know anyway, that was on this planet. And as soon as that happened, like when they lost the fear of the gods, the fear of being judged after life, society crumbled away, and like the Egyptian civilization died. It feels like we're right there. I'll be honest, I'm not religious myself, but I was raised being brought to church, and I learned a lot of morals. I learned a lot from my grandparents who were very religious, and I identify a lot more with someone like you than I do with these people on the left who worship themselves.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, ancient Rome was the same way. They had this
Was it?
decadent, debaucherous society at the end of the empire, and also other things similar to America. They were having massive inflation. Their coins basically were worth nothing at the end of the era. And then they had all these Goths that they were bringing in to come and fight in the army and try and assimilate them, but these people didn't assimilate. It's the same with illegal immigration and mass migration throughout Western Europe. It's the exact same thing.
Wow.
The collapses seem very similar to each other. But in terms of, I mean, you're exactly right when it comes to responsibility. Look, if you read the Bible, okay, if you read the Bible, like let's say you read the four Gospels, the story of Jesus' life, you have three choices that you can make. You can either deny it, you can either ignore it, or you can accept it as truth. And so once you've read the text, you then have to make a decision. That takes responsibility. You'll talk to so many people who are atheists or these religious leftists, and you're talking to them about religion or God or Christianity, and you'll say, "Have you read the Bible?" And they'll say, "No, I haven't read the Bible, but I don't need to read the Bible. I watch Sam Harris videos, and I don't need to read the Bible." That's what many of them say. And it's like, well, that's because you don't want to take responsibility. Once you actually get that information in front of you, you then have to take responsibility for the information that you have presented yourself with. And that's not just with religion and Christianity, that is with any sort of information that comes to you. Ignore it, deny it, or accept it as truth. People have to take responsibility. So the ignorance is bliss argument really is, to these people, it is bliss, even though their lives are miserable. But it's because they don't actually realize that taking responsibility for things makes their life better. Even though those
True.
types of things are harder, it's harder to take responsibility. It actually makes your life better in the long run. But people don't want to do the hard work.
Well, we live in an age of instant gratification. That's all they want.
Yeah,
They just want it now. I don't want to work for it. Why would I want to work for it? But they
right.
have no idea. They don't know because society has been built to make life easy for us all. That's the Industrial Revolution basically just ramped up making things easy, which,
Right.
I like I like life being relative. I like having a refrigerator. I like having a car that I can go to the store or drive and see places, and lots of many advances in medicines and all this different stuff.
No.
And I was talking about this with Robert on Tuesday. It's just like there's a line. It feels like we crossed way past that balance. Suddenly,
Hmm.
life is too easy. Now we're soft. Now, and you mentioned earlier, we've never, as far as we know, because who knows? Maybe when Rome was falling, suddenly men were being feminized. But right now,
They were. It's
it,
true.
it makes sense. It's like people are
Yeah.
soft. Everyone's soft, but it's because life's so easy. We don't have to work. We don't have to get up early with the sun to make sure the crops are taken care of, that nothing's eating it, so that we can store it for the winter time, and we, get strong and tough and coordinate with the people around us. So if raiding parties come in, we don't get like caught off guard, and we can defend our property. It's like all that stuff. It reminds me of this quote: people who don't uh, people who worry about microaggressions never had to deal with macro dangers. And I love that, because that
Yeah, that is
describes
good.
the SJWs perfectly, because they
Hmm.
complain about microaggressions all the time. They have no idea what a macro danger is. They have no clue. They've never been
Yeah.
confronted with it.
Well, John Adams was said that to have freedom, paraphrasing, to have freedom, you have religious, moral
Wait, say that.
people.
Will, you cut out. Please say that again.
Oh, sorry. John Adams essentially said that if you want freedom or liberty, then you need to have a religious and moral people. It's a
Right.
very important quote from John Adams, right? Because they understood that. So a lot of people talk about the Enlightenment and say, the Enlightenment is where things started going badly. You have things based on science and they're getting rid of religion. And they say, well, the founders were these Enlightenment type of thinkers. And it's like, yes, the founders were Enlightenment type of thinkers. They were thinking in terms of liberalism, in terms of democracy, in terms of a republic where everyone has a say, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, all these types of things. But they knew that you needed a society that was built on religious principles. That's why you have inalienable rights given to you by your creator in America, where you don't have that anywhere else in the world. You have your rights from the government everywhere else in the world. You have your rights from God in America. And so if you want to have this freedom and liberty and a good America where you can have an industrial revolution, which a lot of conservatives and libertarian market types won't talk about, how the industrial revolution in a way actually, despite being the free market, broke down families in America. It had
Hmm.
the after effect of doing that. But if you want these types of things to be able to happen, you want technology to flourish, you want people to become more modern and more technological based, those things can be fine. But if you don't have God, then you devolve into a society that is built on these types of things instead of as a secondary thought. And that's a really scary thing. I mean, even going into the whole transhumanism stuff, we could go into that. But That's
I
another
think
can of
that was
worms.
yeah, that was well said though. Transhumanism. What is that? I've heard that term many times, but I'm not sure what it
Yeah.
is.
Transhumanism is essentially the new technological age of improving humanity. And I
Like
use the word
CRISPR?
improving a little bit. Yeah, yeah. So it's like like the Neuralink that Elon Musk is doing. So this is why
Yeah.
everyone's coming out loving Elon Musk. I feel like myself and my fiance actually were like the only ones really coming out and criticizing Elon Musk whatsoever. I'm actually myself a little disappointed in conservatism just coming out so fiercely for him because
Mhm.
of the other things that he is involved in. I think
Okay.
there's a lot going on there. Um,
I agree.
get into that if you want. Yeah, yeah. The Neuralink essentially is a way that he talks about. Oh, the Neuralink, this chip in your brain that can, it's supposed to help people who are injured in war, paraplegic stuff like that, people with Alzheimer's things. But in the essence of what it actually is, I mean, they're saying that you can have thoughts that are going to upload to a cloud where you can communicate with other people without having to speak. I mean, to me, the implications of something like this is beyond anything that humanity has ever faced. The technological revolution that is happening right now is the biggest threat I think humanity has really ever faced, because this could be the brink of where we've had wars for thousands of years. We've had famines. The Black Death killed what, half of Europe. But we've never, in my opinion, throughout world history, had a time where we've ever felt like we were going to lose our humanity to something that we have created. This is what it feels like today with the technology that we are developing in this country. I mean, Elon Musk comes out and says, I support the Canadian truckers, yet he is building self-driving cars through one of his companies. Are you going to support the Canadian truckers when self-driving cars have taken all the jobs?
Well,
There's
those trucks need a human to be in them though. They don't just
right,
drive themselves autonomously. They do
right. So
drive themselves.
going forward in the future, I mean, they want to have cars that don't have any sort of any of that. I
This is
mean, we're
true.
we're
Yeah,
looking
you're right.
forward to these types of things that we're pushing for, right? Autonomy in basically everything. I mean, you now have
Right.
these robots that are being developed that are like friends for children. They're AI robots that take the place of friends or parents in your
Man.
children's home. It's like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal and no one's talking about. And you have, again, the
I
Wojaks who are like, yeah, Star Wars. But that's not what this is at all.
It scares me. Yesterday, I just had a segment talking about the increase of people marrying sex dolls, and
That's,
it's going on everywhere. And there's huge population uh, groups of people who are shut-ins that don't want to go outside, don't want to communicate socially, because they don't know how to. They weren't taught that in school. They were taught how to test. They weren't taught
mm-hmm.
how to think. They were taught how to take the tests to pass the grade, to get on to the next level, to do the same thing, rinse and repeat until boom, you're kicked out of school to go do life. These people are marrying sex dolls, but now add in this whole thing. That's a frightening premise. And then so on Elon too. What I don't look, I like Elon as well. But I like SpaceX. I'm all for space. I'm really excited about space and stuff. I am nervous about Neuralink. Elon himself has said in interviews that AI is one of the greatest threats if we don't keep it in check. And then I just read a story like 4 days ago about how an AI created its own AI that is smarter than any AI that we've ever tried to come up with. It's like the best, strongest AI ever. And it's like, okay, well, what happens when that makes an AI? And then when that AI makes an AI, and then suddenly we all have neural links in our head. And it's like, you know what? These humans aren't doing what the AI has determined to be best for humans to live on this planet, and just takes us over. And then suddenly we're the Borg,
Right.
right? I see that as a very real possibility. And when I see Elon, I'm like, dude, how do you're so smart. You clearly, he's got all these things and threads everywhere and all these different facets of life. How is that not something that you're worried about when you're making Neuralink? When you
Yeah.
talk about AI, he's the one who I got this information from. So it's like, bro, you know about AI. How are you not worried? Hackers, not to mention hackers, right? I mean, who knows? People hacking into your brain, getting your bank codes, your phone,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
any information that they want out of your brain because it's just connected to the web now.
Right.
No,
Look, they
I'm
just had
good.
that cryptocurrency hack. I forget what coin it was for, but there was just a hack with millions of people's dollars about
Really?
this cryptocurrency. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Jordan Chattel, he was talking about it. I don't know if that's how you say his last name, Jordan Schachtel or something like. He's a
Cool.
journalist, used to work for the Blaze. He was talking about. But yeah, I'm like those types of things. When it's all technology based, and we're seeing the rise of cyber warfare right now coming as a real possibility, especially if our country is putting themselves in a position to be an adversary. These are Dan Crenshaw's words, not mine. An
Right.
adversary to Russia across the world. Then you are putting us in a position to be attacked. And war
True.
isn't fought the same anymore. It's fought through
Correct.
the web space. It's thought by China hacking Equifax. That's how wars
Mm.
are fought nowadays. And so if you're going to have all this technology and all these things and they're hackable materials that anyone can get into, that a foreign country could get into, the possibilities are endless for the amount of destruction that can be caused by these new technologies.
Did
I
you
don't think
see?
that everyone working on this stuff is evil. I don't believe that. I don't think Elon Musk is evil. I really don't. I think that
Right.
he's in many ways a good guy.
Agreed.
And I do agree with a lot of the stuff he's doing with Twitter and things like that. I'm upset about the Tesla paying people to go get abortions. Uh, I was
Yeah,
very upset with that. But
I don't understand that. That's
regardless, I
weird.
don't think all these people are evil, but I do think that many of them have a God complex. And they think that we don't, just like you were saying, we don't need God. We can be the gods. We can improve humanity. And who's going to stop us?
Did you see the advertisement for the psyop from the army?
No. What is
Oh
this?
my dude. So you're talking about warfare and like what the new age warfare. It's not, it's not bodies in the field fighting.
Right.
Granted, I mean, we're seeing some of that in Ukraine right now, but uh, World War III, right? It's not the same. And this is Zach Voorhees posted this. He is the Google whistleblower who came to Project Veritas about Google, about their AI system that is basically out of control as well. And this freaked me out a little bit. And this is he actually posted this. So I'm gonna I got to play it for you if you haven't seen it. You
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
He said this is the closest we'll come to the U.S. military admitting that they pushed the QAnon psyop against the American public. That's that's just like one facet of this. I think it's so much bigger than anything else. This is a real ad, by the way. Just letting everyone know. Okay, hold on. It continues. What are
Wow.
your thoughts on
New
that?
call New Call of Duty looks crazy. Am I right?
Yeah.
It's insane. Was there supposed to be volume on that? I couldn't hear anything. I just read all the words.
Oh, you didn't hear it was just music. Oh
Oh,
man,
just
yeah, there
music?
was
Okay.
I didn't realize there was no audio. I'm sorry, everybody. That
Yeah,
really
maybe that was
changes.
just me. Maybe it
No,
didn't happen.
no,
I don't
it's
know.
not just you. I definitely I didn't add the audio when I added the that's totally my bad. Damn, it really
Okay.
changes the whole vibe of everything because
Yeah.
you hear people talking about sci man, I can't believe I wanna play it again, but I don't it's 3 minutes long.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's okay. I mean, I read all
it
the words and saw the imagery and everything. It's definitely creepy,
well,
for sure.
just to lay out a little bit of what, they were talking about. They're talking about Psy-War. I'm just gonna play one part. I'm gonna share it again, and
Yeah.
there's just one portion when the tape player is playing. Where's the tape player?
Yeah, I think that was in the first one, right?
The first one? That is so important for what is being said. Listen to this.
Important phase of warfare.
You can hear it now, right?
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is against the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
Ammunition used by Psy-War.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldiers, and at the same time,
is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of.
It changes the context completely, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's more creepy now, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely creepier.
Well,
So who is this ad for?
this is for the Army, dog. Go Army. At the very end,
This is
there's
Go Army?
it's Go Army, and then there's a link. What is it? It says goarmyof.com. So
Go
or
Army
SOF.
OnlyFans?
Goarmysof.com.
So where did this get released? How did this get out? Was it like a draft and then they never put it
This
out?
is something that
Or,
Zach posted on his page.
Got it.
And well, here's the website. I just went to it.
Yeah.
U.S. Army Special Operations Careers.
Man,
So
that's crazy.
you know, man, Operation, what is it? Paperclip. Man, so I really had a political awakening about 2 years ago, 2002 or 2020. I'm realizing how much I missed as far as what has led us here. I asked Robert Barnes to break down the Ukrainian conflict, and he went all the way back to like 1920 and just was like all the way up to now. Really amazing, in-depth, all these different things that have led us here. You know, I'm learning that psychological warfare isn't new at all. It's been going on for 50 years plus, probably longer. Probably for hundreds of years. You know, the way that it has advanced is because of the internet, because of this age of media and being able to connect to people's minds directly. Now I think about Neuralink and I'm like, oh, hell no.
Right.
Definitely not. You know, oh, this person's sleeping. Let's put this dream in their head that they want to do what we want them to do. Like, who knows what they're capable of doing?
Well, we're really turned into a Brave New World. I mean, that's people always talk about 1984. You see the Republicans posted 1984 quotes, George Orwell stuff, and there's some truth to that. But I feel like we are much closer to a Brave New World. In the 1960s, B.F. Skinner, the psychiatrist, was doing experiments on rats and trying to figure out how to control rats. And he started with negative reinforcement to get them to do a behavior. And you find that negative reinforcement, yeah, they won't do it for a bit, but then eventually they'll keep doing that behavior. But when you do positive reinforcement as the behavioral control, every single time they will listen to you and do exactly what you want them to do. And people have realized that in the social sciences for decades now and know that positive reinforcement is how they control the people. That's what they've done in America. I mean, that's why we were just talking about life is so comfortable, life is so easy. You have all these different technological advances. And so when you have a means to make people's lives so comfortable, to make their mob mentality and this technological easy life comfortable and safe, then they're going to be so easy to be controlled. I mean, if you told people now, you said, hey, we're going to get rid of your microwave if you don't denounce Donald Trump, people would probably denounce Donald Trump so that they could heat up their hamburger helper. You know, that's the world that we live in today. And that's really sad. You know, Aldous Huxley said the famous line in Brave New World Revisited, where he said, you know, give me hamburgers and pizza, but don't bother me with liberty and my responsibilities. You know, that's what people want. People want that ease of life.
Yep.
And that's the destruction of the West.
I agree. Oh man, it's heavy. I try so hard to like not get black pilled. I'm like, no, I gotta stay optimistic. I gotta believe that human beings as a whole want freedom, want liberty. They don't want to be slaves. They don't want to be, you know, just cogs in a wheel moving society forward. I don't know.
I think they want the illusion of not being a slave.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like to me. Is people want to feel like they have some sort of choice in small, minute details, but when it comes to the major things, I think they want to be chugged along like a train on a track. I mean, that's what it's like to me.
Yeah,
and that's sad. There's the elect. There's what Nietzsche would call the Ubermensch. There are the Ubermensches and the elect in our society, that 1% of people who rise above it and do something incredible and brilliant and brave with their lives, and are the people who change the world. You know, Beethoven and Albert Einstein, Kanye West, you know, maybe Kanye, I don't know. But, you know, these types of people, these incredible people, they're the ones
I like Kanye a lot.
I love Kanye. I've always loved Kanye.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they tried to pit him as some sort of crazy, and every time I've listened to him speak, I'm like, this guy seems pretty reasonable. Like, he's not
right.
His mind, you know, he's got 1,000 things running through his head, but that's I don't know how high his IQ is, but you'd think that it's probably pretty high because of how many things he's got going on at one time. His interview with Joe Rogan was really incredible to watch because he was all over the place, but very on point though. You know, it all made sense. It wasn't just like a crazy, wild harebrained thing like you would think how the media portrayed him. But then, of course, I've learned the media is quite often wrong.
I think they're wrong more than they're right.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I want to say thank you very much, Will. I got a bunch of super chats. I saw some questions coming in. I'd like to get to them. I know about an hour and a half, so I want to get to those. But before I do, I want to let everyone know in the description below, you can please go follow his stuff. I've been following Will for quite some time. It's actually quite a pleasure to actually speak with you today. And I want everyone to follow what he's doing and help support any way you can, because it's this kind of attitude that I see that you have, the non-condescending tone that you always have. It's no one can really get mad at you because you're not coming at them. You're just asking questions, and it's very positive. And I like that those types of people exist on this planet. And you're one of those people I think are actually making a difference. So thank you for that.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. Really. I'm glad that you recognize it.
Oh, absolutely. Fluffer Boy 2004 for $10 just says, hey, Adam, I just wanted to thank you for your kind comment on one of my songs. Not only did it bring me some sorely needed good vibes, but you inspired me to see how far I can go. Thank you for everything. Of course. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. You know, people suggest songs for me. I've actually got introduced some really cool music. So please keep suggesting music, especially if it's yours. I want to check out your music. Arwillia says, super chat for Will's great points and hair. Thanks, gentlemen.
I just got a haircut yesterday. This is my biggest selling point, I think.
You got a haircut for my show?
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't shave, but I got a haircut enough.
That's all right. I don't either. Yeah,
I can tell. Yeah, that's your whole life. That's your whole life growing, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Devil Dog Cog celebrating 9 months as a member. Thank you very much, Cog. Says, how does Dennis Prager feel about Dave Rubin adopting kids? Many of us see that as having groomer intentions. Interesting.
Yeah, I can't answer too much for what Dennis Prager would say exactly, but Prager.
What about you?
Yeah, for me personally, I didn't agree with it. What Dave Rubin did, it wasn't something that I would
What
say
exactly did he do? Did they both take their seed and?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Basically,
That's what
surrogacy.
Okay.
There's plenty of children out there who are looking for homes to be adopted, and instead of that, they, the surrogacy route, which some people will say is essentially like buying a kid. Basically, it's like a form of slavery in a way, separating the child from its mother and then giving it to this family. I personally was not a fan of it. I'm not against it. I'm not against Dave Rubin in who he is, but I can't stand for that he did that.
Okay.
I'm not one to congratulate him for that. Again, like I talked about, it's like compassion, the micro, and then talk about big ideas in the macro. You find compassion with someone who you've known and worked with, and you don't want to come and dunk on them or something like that. Maybe social media does, but then you talk about the ideas in the macro and you say, hey, listen, like this is not what I think is good for society or for America.
All right. Robert Wiles has a super chat, but I think I saw him. He did, yeah. He sent one before the show started, and of course, YouTube likes to get rid of those. He says, I hope this makes Betty smile and Diana Francisco smile. I will have your package mailed out tomorrow. We've been having lots of storms. Sorry. Oh, no, dude, no worries at all, man. There's absolutely no rush in the slightest. Robert again says, I don't have the money for this, Adam, but Darth Vader's wife isn't doing well. Please pray for her and Darth Vader. They need all the love and support. Two things. Absolutely. Darth Vader is a ardent supporter of mine, and I wish his wife the absolute best through whatever she's going through. I don't know what she's going through. And then Robert, if you don't have the money for it, please keep it, man. I really love that you are always here if you can, and I appreciate your support. And if you need it, I don't want you to feel obligated at all in any sense. But it's such a great thing to see that even though you're in that situation, you want to bring light to someone else in my chat, Darth Vader. So thank you so much. You have a good soul yourself, Robert. And everyone in chat, please just give a little thought and prayer towards for Darth Vader and his wife. True Jello says faith gives people purpose beyond themselves. Yep, and people don't want that.
Definitely.
Or sorry, the SJWs don't want that.
Right.
They don't want to think beyond themselves. They just want to think about themselves. That's it.
Easy.
Right. Yeah. Bobby Bob, message retracted. Well, thank you. Oh, he sent another one here. It says, what do you think the establishment is thinking, seeing all the Trump-backed candidates winning in such high numbers?
I think a lot of them are scared. I think that I do also think, though, that some of Trump's endorsed candidates have not been very good.
Dr.
Speaking
Oz?
Specifically Dr. Oz, also the guy who, I forget, what's his name? The guy who he endorsed for the governor of Georgia. He was a rhino too. Forget his name. Anyway, he's had some endorsements that I haven't really agreed with. He went on Hugh Hewitt's show talking about some of these endorsements, and I was just like, these aren't the America First guys that we're thinking of. So I think that the Trump endorsement still means a lot. I think that it does obviously help people. I mean, you got J.D. Vance and others, but I do think that some of them still could be better. I think definitely like I think that Trump still has the problem, just like he did when he was in office, of the people who are advising him. It's the same thing. He had terrible people advising him while he was in office. He knew what he wanted to say. You would get him to a rally and he'd say whatever the hell he wanted. And then get these people who are advising him, and they're terrible. And they make everything worse. And that's what it feels like now with some of these picks and some of the people who he's putting forward. And also bringing the Johnson & Johnson guys to his rally. I was so pissed about that.
Yeah, dude, he's so obsessed with the vaccine. He,
crazy.
every chance he gets, he's like, I basically created it. It's the greatest thing for humanity. I'm like, no, dude. Why, Trump? What are you doing? Oh my gosh.
It's one of the worst things. Yeah.
Right. Well, that remains to be seen, YouTube. We don't know. That's
right. Sorry. I don't want to get you banned.
That's okay.
So it's really great.
You're talking about Trump. That's what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Then we're good.
Yeah.
Sleep is the cousin of death. What an interesting name. Says, I read the Bible, Mormon Bible, part of the Quran, and I'm still atheist. Have you read other Bibles, or did you just assume yours to be true? That's a spicy
So
question. I believe this one's for
yeah.
you, Will.
Yeah, so I actually, it's funny, when I was in COVID and I was ordering the Bible, because, you know, when you're in the conservative space, I'm sure many of you guys will understand if you are, or especially like the Republican space, it's very evangelical. And so for myself, being not Christian, I wanted to do more research and I was like, okay, maybe I should actually do this. And so I actually ordered the Quran as well. And so I actually did both. And then actually working for Dennis Prager as well, I've done the first 5 books of the Bible. You know, and also talked with Dennis about it a lot because of his what's it called, his biblical series that you guys might have seen. I'm not sure if you guys
I
have
haven't seen it.
Yeah, they're great. They're actually really good. He basically takes the first 5 books of the Bible. He hasn't finished all of them right now, but he did Exodus, Genesis, and Deuteronomy, and then he like goes through basically verse by verse and breaks down what it means.
Wow.
They're really, yeah, they're really good and really in depth. They're a lot of hard work. I did that Quran and also the Bible as well. So yeah, didn't get all the way through the Quran, I will admit.
Well,
But
there you go. But have you read the Mormon Bible yet, Will?
I've spent a lot of time with Mormons. I've read parts of it, like on my planes back from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles, but I can't say that I've delved deeply into it. That's about the best I can give you on the Mormon.
And Scientology?
Book. So
have you?
Well, I'm a Scientologist. I thought you guys all knew that. I thought, you know, that's why you brought me on. To praise Zenith, or what's my god's name? I forget.
I don't remember. Who knows?
Xena. Yeah, I don't know.
Is that it? I don't even know. Sleep Again says government declared itself secular because religion is inherently oppressive. Knowing that, why would you put people in power based on fear of God? I think, well, I'll let you, this is obviously directed towards you, so I'll let you answer
that. Again, I don't think that the founding fathers intended people to not be religious. There's really not much evidence for that. They might have given people freedom of religion to say, hey, you don't have to be a Christian, you don't have to be Jewish, you don't have to be Muslim, you can be whatever religion you want, because they believed in this type of freedom. But they knew that to have a good people living in America, that you needed a religious population. They weren't turning away from it. Okay, and there's a lot of debate on whether or not the founding fathers were religious or not. Some people say Thomas Jefferson was a huge atheist, and some people say no, actually he was pretty Christian in a lot of the things he did. You know, there's a lot of debates. But when it comes to Abraham Lincoln, I could tell the whole story about Abraham Lincoln, which I think is one of the most unbelievable stories in the world. I'll tell it quickly. I'll be quick about it.
Sure.
Abraham Lincoln was a religious man, but he wasn't really a God-fearing man when he first got elected for president, right? Okay. And so then the war breaks out, the Civil War, the Union double the money, they have double the resources, double the people essentially, and they're losing every battle against the Confederacy. And they can't figure out why. They just keep losing and losing and losing despite having all this, right? And then Abraham Lincoln's son dies. His son dies of, I believe, tuberculosis. Very sad. And so now he's got his wife who's incredibly upset. He's losing the war, trying to be the president, and his son just died. And he's having a horrible, rough time. Right? And so to help him out, they hire this nurse. This nurse comes, who's a Union nurse, to come and console with his wife. And the nurse comes in, and she's very joyous, and she's happy, and she's helpful to the entire family. And she's so happy. And he says, "Your brother died, and your 2 sons died, and your husband died in the war. All of these people in her life died in the war, and yet she's still there. She's happy, and she's joyous." And he says, how are you like that? And she says, well, I met God. And Abraham Lincoln basically says, well, can you introduce me? And the 2 of them start working, going through Bible study together, working on religion, all these kind of things. And Abraham Lincoln has a complete change of faith, becomes a very God-fearing Christian man, right? In his next inaugural address in 1964, when he's talking about slavery, he says slavery is a punishment from God, this war is a punishment from God for the North and the South because of the institution of slavery. Every single person in his cabinet, even his wife, said, no, Lincoln, you can't make the war about slavery. Don't make the war about slavery. And he said, I have to. God told me I had to. This war is now about slavery. It's about the freedom of these men. And he made it about that. And by some miracle, there was a battle plan that was on the ground, and one of the Union soldiers, they tripped over the cigar, and in it was Robert E. Lee's battle plan. They found Robert E. Lee's battle plan on the ground, and this one battle actually that they found these plans for turned the tide of the war to make the Union win. I can't remember the exact name of the war. And at the same time that this guy found the commands of this war, of the battle, Abraham Lincoln was down on his hands and knees making a covenant with God.
Wow.
And so when I say that you need a God-fearing man, I think that you will find the best moral and good people who are actually devout followers of the faith. Obviously, there are horrible people who are also claim to be religious. I mean, Catholic priests fondling children, people who say they're Christian and don't live that out. Tons of people like that. But when you have people who really live that life, and I always told you guys a long story, but I think that those are the type of leaders that we need in this country.
What about the statement that because religion is inherently oppressive? That doesn't feel right to me. I had my family was religious growing up, and I don't see that being true. I don't agree with that.
Religion being oppressive is an atheist leftist argument that has been used to give your children to the state. The people that say this, they say religion is oppressive. If you teach your kids about God, this fantasy up in the sky, you are indoctrinating your children. They say that, and they shame people for wanting to teach their children about this. It's an argument that's been going back for decades. And so they say, well, no, you shouldn't indoctrinate your children here with Christian values. You should send them to public schools because this is an indoctrination. And it's like, actually it is. And so instead of having parents teach their kids good values, spend time with them, they just send them off to school, and essentially the state owns a child and sees the child more than their parents ever do. And that's really how this developed. It developed as an argument to get kids to be owned by these institutions.
That makes sense. Actually, Sleep just responded. Usually I read my super chats in order, but I see you just responded to Sleep is the cousin of death, and they respond here with another super chat. It says, that's a fair point, but Jefferson Davis used the Bible as a defense for slavery, and also entire book called Bible Defense of Slavery.
Right.
I don't know.
No, of course. Yeah. Right. Those kind of things can happen. Again, you have religious people who, I will say that the one sin, according to Dennis Prager at least, the one sin that is unforgivable by God is you committing evil acts in the name of God. Like if you're like, okay, we can make this Christian theocratic society, but I just have to murder and cheat on my wife and put other gods before my God. God will not forgive you for that. And so, honestly, these types of people who are these false prophets, as you will say, who are using religion, using scripture to justify evil things, are actually the worst people. And especially because they represent the religion in the worst type of way. So I see exactly what you're saying. But again, we have to remember that all of these people, they are people. I screw up all the time. I am not a perfect Christian by any means. I know I'm coming on here and talking about it, but by any means, I'm not a perfect Christian. I haven't lived my life at all like a perfect Christian. I mean, I was debaucherous and terrible before in my life.
There's no such thing as perfect.
There. Right. And so the people will use religion as a means to justify evil things. It doesn't mean that it is right.
Understood. Hunch, I'm gonna read this super chat too because it pertains to what we were just talking about. Hunch the Dirty Roofer says that is completely wrong. Will the battle plans wrapped around cigars was at the second Manassas or Bull Run in the North, fought in 1862. I don't know enough about any of this, so I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the super chat. Thank you.
Bobcat says transhumanism is the idea of upgrading humanity either through cybernetics, which we lack the tech power, lack the tech to power, or through bioengineering. Okay, so that makes sense. I see it. Cybernetic upgrades and whatnot. Bobcat again says, unlike many conservatives, I don't fear transhumanism. Granted, I grew up on Gibson, so instead of worrying about the risks, I embrace the capabilities. The more I learn about society as a whole and the people who are actually in control, I would have been more like that too. I did a segment about Neuralink, I don't know, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It might have been 2020. when he first unveiled it. I don't remember exactly when, and he did this whole he showed the pigs that were and showed their brain waves because they had it linked up in the pigs, and I did this whole segment on it, and I saw the capabilities, but man, have I learned a lot since that point, and I don't know if I trust it anymore. I don't know if I can if the ends justify the means, or if the ends are the ends that we think they're going to be, right? I think that's
Right.
really what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's Icarus trying to put on wings and fly
Yep.
to the sun.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
happens? This is what you get.
Sean Jack says, looking back at the past 80 years, knowing what we know now, it's clear that World War II never ended. Infiltration instead of invasion.
Yeah, especially my fiance, she's Dutch, and so I go to Amsterdam a lot, which is right next to Germany, and so
Beautiful city.
I love Amsterdam. It's really incredible.
Yeah,
all of Holland is. If you like
true
flatness, but there's some really cute type of towns.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And
I
great
love
cheese
Holland too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Anyway, next to Germany, and the German conservative movement is not very strong. Germany's the biggest country in Europe, and yet they don't really have at all really a conservative movement. I mean, none of Western Europe really does like America, but other countries, at least like France, was more, and Le Pen have some stuff, and Spain with the Vox Party and others, but Germany really doesn't, and that's because they're still in a hangover from World War II. They are so worried about being called Nazis that they won't stand up for anything. And really what Germany does in Europe, the rest of Europe does. So if Germany actually had some balls, I guess we could say, and stood up for some things, we could change a lot in Europe, but Germany won't do it, and so the rest of Europe won't do it.
Yeah. Well, and this whole Ukraine thing, the way Robert Barnes broke it down, it really does make sense that it's nationalism versus globalism. They want to bring Russia to heel, to prove, they being the elites that want to, start the New World Order or whatever, World Economic Forum, the Democratic Party who's working with them. I mean, it's not even conspiracy anymore. It's like they've straight up said that that's what they want to do. So it's not like I'm, grasping at straws here. That's really what it is. They want to end the nationalism. Of course, all they're doing is promoting Ukrainian nationalism. It's like, yeah, go Ukraine. And it's like, so what? Are you allowed to be pro the country and that you're from and not want other people to invade it? Because guess what? America's being invaded right now.
Right.
And they're allowing it, and they're busing them all over the place. It's crazy, man.
Well, this should really be that people should look at it as a humanitarian struggle with the people who are caught in the crossfire of people who are selfish and greedy ruling elites. I mean, that's what this should be looking at, not as a let's make some enemies or let's go send missiles. It's like, how can we help the people who are being sacrificed for these people's money laundering and power schemes? Definitely.
Lady Freddie, thank you for that little, I don't know what that is. Oh, it's a laughing woman. Okay, it's a little super sticker. Thank you so much for that. Mark says, separation of church's state is to protect religion from government, not to protect government from religion. Yeah, I've never really thought about that. That makes sense, though. But anyway, that is the show. Will, what a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. These are a lot of things that I don't always get to talk about. So it's good to do this with you, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most of what I've seen of you is just those interviews where you're talking to people, asking them questions, and honestly, what you're doing is making them think, and I like that. I like people that make others think. More people need to do that because there's not enough thinkers in this world. If you liked any of his points, or even if you didn't, I think you should absolutely check out what Will does over at PragerU. In the description below, you can find PragerU's website as well as Will's Instagram, because you're quite prevalent on Instagram. You post a lot there. And then, of course, his Twitter that you can find. And I'm not sure if I put your YouTube channel. I honestly don't recall exactly.
PragerU.com is where you guys can go to watch all the videos. Yeah.
And I put the link for your book. If anyone wants to check out his book, that's also in the description below. You could check it out and tell New York Times why they're wrong for not putting it on the bestsellers list.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we're really going to change their minds.
Well, Will, thank you very much, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thanks everyone for watching.
All right. And everyone, I will be back tomorrow with Jake Coco on the show. It's my first ever musical guest on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. And y'all have a great night. See you next time. Good night.